Okay. So I guess we can begin with this session. So hello everyone and welcome to the first Alumni and Research session. So as we told earlier, so today we'll be discussing the prospect of pursuing research abroad through the valuable experience and insights gained by our distinguished alumni. And without further ado, I believe that I would like to introduce our panelists for today. So our first panelist, Mr. Vikram Shri, was a Y13 student in the Department of Aerospace Engineering. He harbors an interest in intelligent systems, particularly in robotic perception, and is currently a PhD student in mechanical engineering, as well as a graduate research assistant at the Autonomous System Labs at Cornell University. He has also been a research intern at Texas A&M University in 2016, as well as a part of the search program at IIT Kanpur in 2015.
Next with us, we have Mr. Pramad Chandri. Pramod was a Y13 student in the CSE department with an interest in video analytics and systems for machine learning. He is a PhD student in the computer science department and a graduate research assistant at the database systems lab at Georgia Institute of Technology. He has also been a visiting researcher at the University of Edinburgh in 2017 and has held internships at Flipkart in 2016 and MAQ software in 2015. Next with us, we have Mr. Bhuvesh Kumar. Bhuvesh is a Y13 student in the CSE department. Was the Y13 student in the CSE department. He has an interest in the domain of machine learning, mechanism design, and differential privacy, and is a PhD student of computer science and a graduate research assistant at the Georgia Institute of Technology. Bhuvesh has been a visiting research scientist at the University of Washington in 2012, 2021, and has held research internships at Amazon, Facebook, and Johns Hopkins University in 2021, 2020, and 2016, respectively. In addition, he has also held software intern at Facebook and Nike in 2020 and 2015, respectively.
So first of all, I would really like to thank all the panelists for taking out time and agreeing to impart all their valuable experience to all of us. So for all the people in the meeting, a form has been floated in the chat and you can ask all your queries, which will be answered towards the end of the session. And with this, I believe we can begin with the session. So Devadatta.
So the first section that we'll be having is on basic daily life. So an open question to the panel. So what does it really mean to be a researcher? So what does research mean to you?
Okay, I can maybe start with this. It's like very open-ended, you can say. So being a PhD student, I would say most of your day depends on how you want it to go. So like you have to take some classes in PhD. Let's say if you're doing a PhD, so you take like 5 to 10 classes and you have 5 years. So you finish with them in first 2 years. So first 2 years you have some classes and you do research. But as you go later, it's mostly about you planning your day about like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to wake up, I'm going to focus on this many projects. You have some research meetings planned throughout the day, but like most people I know are like collaborating on 2 or 3 different projects. So you have to decide which project you will be spending your time on. And yeah, you just read a bunch of papers, you do some writing, you do some math. Actually depends on the area you are as well. So my area is machine learning theory, so I mostly do math. So I just read some papers and I try to do some math for most of the time and and have some meetings throughout the day. But mostly I would say it's about balancing when to work, because it's completely independent. Like no one's going to check up on you, like what you did today or what you even did this week. Like you might have meetings every week, or like sometimes advisors some people have different structures of how often they meet. But I would say mostly it's just being very independent. And I think that's one of the problems people face also. Like when you're in college, you have these homeworks and assignments with specific deadlines and like very small goals that you can just do, and like gives you some sense of accomplishment, and like you make some progress. But with research, it's like, your next paper deadline is going to be in 3 months, and like you have an open-ended project, you haven't decided like what exactly you're going to do. So it's mostly about like discipline, I would say, and just sitting down and doing the work. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with what Bhuvesh just said, that I think of a PhD as synonymous to like freedom, actually. Like you have the freedom to do a lot of things that you want to do. It's different from working at a company. You can decide that what you want to pursue, and then you can choose your advisor accordingly. And then you just keep working on a problem like in your own timeline. I know people who work in the morning. I know people who don't work in the morning. Rather, they like working at night instead. So, like, whatever works for you. Like, you have to have a certain level of discipline, I think, like, just to make some progress. But yeah, it's totally up to you. So, yeah, for me, so I work in robotics. Regularly, what I do is mostly I read papers, I think about problems, and of course, I do some maths as well. And then there is a part of like experimentation which is involved in robotics. So we take some robots outdoors and then do some experiments on that. So that's how my daily life looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would mostly agree with what Bhuvesh and Vikram were mentioning. For me, I think over the course of 3 years, what I realized is, in my case, research is the process of research is like the combination of three things. One is independence. Of course, like I think Bhuvesh and Vikram had spoken about it, like freedom, independence. The second is ownership, and the third is perseverance. So ownership is something that I think it took me some time to get used to, or get to my head, that okay, it's not that I am reporting to my advisor or that I'm reporting to the collaborators. It's like you're actually not reporting you're not telling them what you've done. Rather, you're actually taking ownership of the project and taking help from them in moving ahead. It's not that they are actually guiding you. It's more like you are like extracting whatever you want from them. So you are the owner of the project, and you are the one who's responsible to finish your thesis or write your thesis, write your paper. And I think the earlier you realize, the earlier you make sure that you get that to your head, that you are the owner of the project, I think the better it is. And third is perseverance. Yeah, like you definitely need a lot of perseverance. So there are days where you don't feel like working at all. There are days where you really like sit whole day, but you want to write a paper, or you want to write like a section of the paper, but all you end up doing is write 2 lines. But you should not let that affect your ability to work the next day. So it's tricky, but I think it's also very rewarding in the end.
So when it comes to freedom, there's a lot of freedom, as you people mentioned, in research. But there are also some, like, the general perception about research is that you have longer working hours, and generally you get a lower amount of income, and it's quite specialized to only your field, as in you often end up overqualified for, say, other jobs. So and some people get stuck in research only, and then they can't really get out. So how should, like, these general ideas be important when people are looking forward to going in research or non-research?
Mm. Someone else wants to start? I mean,
Yeah, I can. So yeah, this is actually a common theme, or a common thing that people usually say. So even when I was applying, or when I was considering a PhD, I did have to think about these things, or like I did hear this from people. But in my personal opinion, I think like yeah, it's also important that Bhuvesh and Vikram add in here. But in my personal opinion, overqualification is not as big a problem as people make it out to be. So I can give you an example. So when I was originally planning to apply, so my advisor at the University of Edinburgh, I asked him that, like, I am interested in systems for machine learning, or systems in general, computer systems, but should I go for a PhD? Why not masters? According to him, it was like PhD is not really that you're like you're becoming over specialized or something. It's more like you're actually channeling your efforts to a particular problem, and you're actually showing the through your PhD dissertation or your thesis, you're showing the community or showing the world that you can actually take again like the ownership of a problem and see it to the end. And I think in industry, even in industry, what they want is how your ability to actually lead a project, or your ability to be independent and work on a project, rather than like the field itself, or how well you're able to understand this topic. Like if you're doing a PhD and if you're successfully defending your thesis, it's understood that you have the ability to understand complicated things and to actually work on like, and to also like take them to the next level. So you're actually like innovating in an area that has not been done before. So your ability, intellectual ability is, I think, more or less guaranteed. What you're proving through your dissertation is that you have the perseverance, you have the ability to independently work on problems and see them to their end. So in that way, I would say it's actually beneficial even for industry roles, and gives you a lot more freedom to like choose what kind of a field you want to go into. So for example, I know people who have done a PhD in physics and now they're working in quantitative finance, and they really did not have any expertise in that area, but their ability to finish their PhD and like their dissertation was had enough quality for them to get those roles. I'm curious to hear what Bhuvesh and Vikram think about this.
Yeah. I mean, I actually agree with what Pramod said, and this is what my experience has been like with talking to like leaders in the industry as well. Like when you have a PhD, you're not necessarily showing that you're an expert in this domain, whatever your thesis is. You're basically signaling to the world that like what exactly Pramod said, that you can spend your time working on a problem and make sure that you finish it. And I would say like, to be very honest, like PhD, like it's not more that much about your. I mean, of course, you need some sort of intellectual ability to do it, but it's more about your perseverance and like, yeah, spend doing the effort, like, yeah, spending the time and doing something for so many years that leads to something. And of course, in the process, you lead a lot of new information because you end up writing papers or sometimes working in completely different domains. So it shows the ability that you can learn quick new stuff quickly, and yeah, then you can like finish problems. But of course, like the fact about like being over specialized, I wouldn't completely discount it, because maybe Pramod and I are in CS. So like for us, I do feel that, yeah, even if you do a PhD, you can still end up like, if you want a generic computer science, like a software engineering role, no one's going to deny you that role because you have a PhD in computer science. You could still go for like a generic software engineer. So those things are always still open for you if you're doing in like a CS or CS related field. But that not might be the case like if you're in biology and you spend like 5 years working on, I don't know, like very specific research. And those skills, they do show some skills about perseverance and stuff, but I don't know if those skills transfer that broadly towards like the broader area of your field. So it does matter like what you're trying to specialize it or what your eventual goals are. So in that sense, it could be different. Like for example, like for Pramod, like the example he gave that people in physics like working in quantitative finance. I've also seen people in physics working in quantitative finance. I've seen people at when I was at Facebook, a lot of people who were like have research scientists, but on the engineering side, they have PhDs in like nuclear engineering, physics, and they have PhD in like mechanical engineering, or like a lot of things that are completely not related to CS, but like they did some CS in their years and were able to manage a software engineering position. But that does indicate like for not a lot, all of them, that they wanted to like be in that area, right? Maybe they started their PhD thinking that they wanted to do something in physics, and they ended up doing a software engineering role because they realized that like actually finding a research position in physics in their domain might be very hard. So it is true that like in academia, it's sort of like a pyramid. Like as you go up, like positions get much smaller, like in number. Like if you want to become a professor, it's very hard to get like a faculty position in US, because I don't know the exact statistics, but like very small percentage of people actually get like faculty jobs. For like every 30 grad students, I think there's like one or two faculty positions. So if every grad student wanted to be a faculty, that's literally not possible. So So in that sense, it is true that like you have to think about your future plans, like what do you want to do after a PhD? Because PhD is not the end, right? It's just a stepping stone towards your eventual career. So you need to have some idea about like what you want to do. I guess it's fine if you like find out during the middle of a PhD, because people do agree that people do say that it's a big commitment, but especially in CS, like it is a commitment. But I have honestly seen a lot of people leave with a master's. Like you join a PhD program, you think you're going to spend 5 years, like middle of the PhD, you realize this is not for you. This is too stressful, or you feel like this is not worth the eventual goals like you want. Like if you, let's say if you want like a software engineering at the middle of 2 years, you realize, okay, I just want like a software engineering role, maybe ML specific, and you're doing a PhD in ML and you realize, okay, I don't really need a PhD in machine learning for this. Like, yeah, Google is ready to hire me as a software engineer working in ML right now. So like, why finish my PhD? And like, you can quit. Like, I don't know. I don't think like most universities have a problem with you quitting your PhD in the middle, but that's not what PhD universities want. Like if they have invested money in you, they want you to like see through it. And like, so the point is the professors and everyone is looking for your success. They want to guide you towards your success, but no one's going to stop you from making decisions like quitting your PhD in the middle. And a lot of people do that. Like I feel like if in a program you see people are quitting PhDs, it's not necessarily a bad sign that the program is bad, because PhD is not for everyone. And a lot of people join PhD hoping it is for them. In the middle, if they realize it's for them, and the fact that the department is supportive of them and people are actually being able to take the decision to quit and like get a master's and like move on and do good in their career, it's yeah, definitely departments support that. And the fact that you said about like longer working hours and pay, so longer working hours, I would say it depends on you. Like how do you schedule your time? Not everyone has longer working hours. I've seen people who do like 9 to 5 or even less and still get great results, and some people who have to spend in more time to get similar effects. So it also depends on how productive you are and how much you can spend, and like, and also depends on how you set your boundaries between work and life. Because as I told, like you have complete freedom. Like, and especially in COVID, like you're not even going to like your lab, just sitting at home doing research. It's completely up to you whenever you want to do it. And the boundary between work and life is very diluted. So it's up to you to set your boundaries right about how you set your work-life balance and how you don't overwork yourself. Because it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So like in college, I remember like, yeah, like end sems are coming, midsems are coming 3 days before the midsems, like you stay up late and you somehow manage to like do okay in the exams, get a decent enough grade. Same for homeworks, like, oh, you stay up late before the day of the homework and you can do it. That doesn't work in like in a PhD. Like you can't stay up late before a conference deadline and like finish a paper, because it needs like months of effort. So yeah, so you have to work long term. So that means that like you don't want to burn out. And it is common, like there are a lot of mental health issues, like, and it's there, but there is help also available. But it is, yeah, I've seen people get into mental health issues, and you need to seek out help for that as well. But it's all completely up to you. And in terms of pay, going back to yes, it is true that if you stay in an academic position, let's say after PhD, you end up doing a postdoc or a professor, the salaries are definitely much less compared to what you could earn in an industry position, specifically for computer science, not necessarily sure for other fields. But the point is that being a professor gives you freedom again. Like you can decide what problems to work on. You can decide when you want to go to the office. You can decide what courses to teach. And like some people like to teach. So if that's something you want to do, or like that's something you like guiding people, it's like worth the compromise of like losing some money. And it's not like professors are like poor, they still make a lot. Like my professor, for example, like he lives in a nice house, owns a Tesla, and like he like, and then professors, like they work 9 months, but they also get like 3 months off. So he goes to like Google and like earns a ton of money in those 3 months. And like he lives a nice life. He's like, he travels a lot because he goes to different countries and different places and gives talks, and all of your travels is funded by your grants. So I feel like it's a different lifestyle where like, yeah, your grants are paying for your travels, and like you're getting to meet a lot of people, you're getting to define your own goals. So it's very different compared to working in company where you may be working more, but like your goals have to be aligned with the company's goals or your team's goals, and you're restricted in that sense. So it's a decision that you have to make, like, yeah, if you're going to want to compromise a little money for more freedom. And that's also much harder to get. That's why like a lot of people want to become professors. But also like some people do end up wanting to be professors because it's also like a prestige thing. But yeah, that I don't think that should be like the reason to make decisions about visiting industry or research. But I guess like, yeah, the best idea is like go visit industry, do internships and stuff, and you realize more what you want to do.
Yeah, I would agree with what Pramod and Bhuvesh just mentioned. It's a balance between what you want. Like if you join a company, you will get a lot of money, but if you join like a PhD, I don't think the money is too less. Like it's enough to like survive in the US. Like you won't have a lot of savings, obviously, but you get to travel. Like you go to conferences, you have a good work-life balance. Like you can decide that what time you want to work on. So I have people in my lab who work from like 9 to 5. They are very productive, and after 5, they don't like to work. So if you want to choose that, go ahead. Like no one is stopping you. It's your life, right? But if you want to work like longer hours, like then that's also your choice. So I guess that's the thing about freedom. Like you get to choose that what you want. Like in a company, you won't have that choice. Like you'll have from this hour to this hour. I mean, a lot of companies, maybe in some companies you don't have to, but in a lot of them you have to. And the other thing that differentiates the research from a company is that in a company, although there is research in companies as well, but the research is more focused towards products. So they try to like specifically cater to the customers and try to specialize their products such that it's like it's new or like state of the art, something like that. But in research, in PhD, you try to think more from like a science perspective. Like, what is the fundamental problem here? Like in robotics, also there are so many challenges. But instead of trying to create just the product, you try to see that what are the fundamental aspects that will create a broader range of products for the customers. So that's where I think the PhD or a researcher or a faculty candidate comes here. And after like a certain level of development of that technology, it can be given to a which can like polish it to make it for a like larger audience, like customers and all. So that's where the company comes in. And as Pramod mentioned, that I don't think that PhD is all about like having a specific skill set during your entire PhD. Rather, it's about like the commitment that you have to a problem. Like that's what they see, that you started with a problem, you spent 4 or 5 years on it, and you gave something out which is useful to the society. So that's what it is about. In undergrad, we never did that. Like in undergrad, let's say we have a project, we would spend 1 week, 2 week, max 1 month to it, and whatever comes out of it, we'll submit it. It doesn't test us for like a longer period of time, but real problems are much difficult than like those assignments or projects. So you need to like be on it for a longer period of time. Yeah, that's my take.
Thank you, Vikram.
Also, one thing I want to add to this is like if you choose a career in academia, you also have to get, I mean, I guess maybe it's true in industry too, but you have to get used to a lot of rejections as well. Like which I felt like was, I mean, like being like, let's say if you're in computer science in IIT Kanpur, like so far you did well in school so that you ended up at IIT Kanpur, right? You've been having this bunch of successes. And in IIT Kanpur, like, okay, let's say you did good in courses, you got good internships and stuff. But when you come to grad school, like as you go up, the competition becomes higher and higher. So you will have a lot of paper rejections. Not everyone has that, but you'll have like fellowship rejections. You will have, when you apply for grad schools, you have grad school admissions rejections. So I feel like the number of rejections you feel you have to experience in grad school is also like significantly larger. But it's just like an aspect of life, and you have to get used to it, and you don't have to like let one rejection like stop you down and like stop the whole process. But that is one thing to like keep in mind as well. Like that's not something that I anticipated before joining a grad school, but like that just happens. Like these rejections hurt. Like you submit 3 papers to a conference, and like your reviewers, 2 reviewers like it and 1 doesn't, and it ends up getting rejected. That gives you a lot of frustration, and it's just, but that you just have to not let that affect your work the next day or the day. But it does sometimes, and that's reality.
Yeah, just to add something to Bhuvesh's point. So that's what happened to me once. Like my first paper after 1 year of work got rejected. That was my first paper as a grad student. And I was like devastated. And I thought that, okay, I should go out with a master's. But then like I talked to my advisor, I talked to my friends, and then with time I realized that, okay, rejections are part of life and I should move on. And then I started publishing. So it is what it is.
So, I have a specific question to Bhuvesh here. So,
Yes.
during your PhD, you pursued a research internship at Amazon, as well as a software intern at Facebook. So, how is that different from like academic research? Like, did the skills like you acquired during your PhD also help there?
Okay, yes. So software engineering internship I did was basically to get an idea of what an industry position might look like. Because I had done some software engineering at internship at IIT Kanpur, but it was in Nike in Dubai. It wasn't like a very big company, so I didn't really have that experience. Which in general, like I think it might be good to have that experience as an undergrad too, because like time is more valuable in PhD, I would say. So yes, industry software engineering position, I felt like my skills in PhD did help, but I think my skills from my undergrad helped more. It's like engineering. So I was in an ads ranking team at Facebook. So it's like, of course, there is some aspects of how well you are at machine learning. Maybe you get better at grad school, but yeah, it was mostly like designing models to like predict how well ads do. Like I can't go into the specific, but it's basically about like some heuristics or like some hypothesis you have. Okay, maybe I should introduce this, or maybe I should introduce this. Maybe I should model my deep learning model in such a way that like this would reduce training time, stuff like that. And then you go and implement it. There are pipelines set up. There are data pipelines set up, and you like spend a lot of time like fine tuning your models and stuff, and like or like writing code to integrate your models into a production system. It is, I think, normal engineering. So that gave me a flavor of what engineering role with a PhD might look like, because everyone in my team was a PhD, because that was like sort of their requirement. I don't know why. It's not like, I don't think it needed a PhD to do that work. When I did an internship, research internship, for example, at Facebook, like I did engineering at Facebook, and then I did a research internship at Facebook. It was a completely different experience. So it was still product focused in the sense that like you can do research, there is still a lot of freedom to research, but there has to be some aspect of why it's beneficial for the company, because you still have to sell it to the company because they're paying you for it, right? Like if you do completely, there are some research orgs which are completely research, and the goal of those orgs is just PR for the company, but that's usually rare. So usually you have to have some sort of you have to add some value to the company. But I felt doing a research internship at there was like very similar to doing research in grad school, in the sense that like it was still a very open-ended problem. you still had to read like a lot of papers. You still have to find the right set of assumptions and problem formulations, and like you had to work on it to make sure it works, and yeah, do the math for it. But the difference is that like, yeah, the goals are slightly different. You have to ensure that why it makes sense for the company to do this. You have to make sure that the research direction also aligns with the goals of the company a little bit. And you also have like meetings with the rest of the team, a bigger team meetings every day. You can see what other people in the team are doing, and you can attend like normal engineering, like whatever the culture of the company is. Like Mark Zuckerberg is giving a talk every week, so you can still attend all of that. But still, like you have some difference in the sense that the research that you're doing is completely separate. And the org I worked at, that was in special in the sense that my team, they collaborated with different teams at Facebook. So they would like find research problems within Facebook, or like some team within Facebook would approach them, because these are the people who have experience in like theory, math, economics, and optimization, you can say. And people will come up with a problem, that this is a problem that we're trying to solve. Like, do you have any ideas? And then you like try to formulate it as a mathematical problem. So in that sense, it felt similar to research, but it is of course restrictive in the sense that the scope of problems you're doing is industry. But I would say there are some problems in industry which you can solve, which you can not even think about solving in academia, for instance. Like, for example, one of the research problems I can give you an example of is, this example in integrity. So Facebook is working on this. Facebook was working on this research problem, like some teams that like they have to flag content, that this content is violates Facebook agreement, and they have some deep learning models suggesting what is the probability that it violates, or something like, or like what category it is. But it's not accurate, so they have to use like a human person, like a human, to actually do some of these manually, right? So, but human resources limited. So how do you optimize this problem of assigning jobs to a human person, like ranking these problems, so that what what actually content a human should look at, so that they can do a verification based on the output of an algorithm. And formulating this as a mathematical problem is like, you basically could think of this in academia, but like these kind of challenges and problems arise in the industry, and there are still like, this is still research. It's not, maybe you won't publish your findings in this, maybe you could, but it's still like you're doing research, you're solving a problem which hasn't been solved before, and like you're reading up stuff, you're formulating as a mathematical problem and solving it. So I would say goals are different, problems are different, but I wouldn't say it's completely disjoint. And yeah, and the point of doing a research internship versus an industry internship for me was to like basically get an idea of like what is better for me in the future and what I like to do. And that is, I would say, important to explore even like at a grad school level, because even after grad school, it's not like a fixed career path that you have to take. So I do agree that at undergrad you need to explore more, but even at grad school you need to explore a little bit extra. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bhuvesh. So, like another quick general question for the panel, like how was like a day in your life as a researcher, let's say before the pandemic, before 2020 hit?
For me, before pandemic, I would say, I mean, yeah, I can tell you my like what a typical day would look like. Like, so being in the US, you have to do all your chores as well. Like being in Kanpur, someone comes and like does your laundry for like 2 rupees a cloth, and yeah, you have mess, you get everything so cheap. You can't really like rely on other people's services that much if you are doing a PhD or doing research in a European or North American country, because labor is expensive. So even though on grad student salary, the salary is enough that you can like have a nice house, and in some cities you can even afford cars, and like in general, like you don't feel scarcity of money, but you still don't have enough that you're going to pay someone to like cook for you, or like pay someone to like clean your house. So you have to just do all of those chores as well, being a part of your day. So I would like meal plan, or like I would prepare my lunch the night before or something like that, and I would go to office when around like 9 or 10 or something like that. Then during the day you have meetings. When you don't have meetings, you work in your office, you do whatever you would do now, like research, read papers, do some math, have a bunch of meetings, attend some talks, because there are tons of talks happening in the university. So like every day I would attend some talks. And other than that, like you do some service for the school in some or the other way. Like I used to aid in faculty hiring. So like faculties who would come and interview with the department, they interview with the students as well. Like there's like a student panel. So I would run that student group who would interview faculty candidates. So I would spend some time like finding volunteers for the next faculty candidate, like relevant to that candidate, or like go on these interviews and go on like lunch with people who are visiting the university. Then towards the end, like I would go to the gym. And then people, I mean, of course people have different hobbies and stuff. I used to do salsa dancing, so I would go for salsa classes, and I think I would be home by like 8, which is not usual for everyone. Like some people come sooner, some people come late, but I would be home by like 9 p.m. or 8, 9 p.m. and have my dinner and still, yeah, do leftover research for the next day if there is any left. And yeah, just waste time on YouTube and Reddit and go to sleep. Yeah, that's a typical day, what it looked like for me.
Yeah, for me also, like it's kind of similar, except that so I was teaching last semester. So if you are a TA, then you have to teach some classes as well. So you need to prepare sometimes for that. So in the morning, I'll come to the office, then see that what do I have to teach. So I'll spend like 1 hour or two on that, and then eventually I'll teach. And after that, I'll start my research. It involves sometimes reading papers, sometimes writing code, sometimes taking robots outside in the field and doing some testing. So that's the research aspect. Apart from that, we have lab meetings with our entire group once in a week. And I have individual meetings with my advisor once in a week. So if I'll prepare for that also, if that's the day of the meeting. Apart from that, some physical activities, like I'm really into physical activities. So I liked Thai boxing. So I went to the Thai boxing class. In the evening, sometimes I come back around like 7-ish, 7:30, something like that. And I'll go for running, like about 2 miles or so. And then around 8-ish or 9-ish, I'll start cooking and like just chill out and sleep, like 10:30, 11, something. So yeah, that's a typical lifestyle, I'll say.
Looks like Bhuvesh and Vikram had a lot more discipline, have a lot more disciplined lifestyle. So mine, if you want a different take at how a day looks like, so mine is a lot more ad hoc or impromptu. At least before the pandemic, like one day I would feel like going to the lab, one day I won't. So if I'm feeling like going to the lab, I would wake up a bit early. Early for me is like 9 a.m. and and then like I would like, yeah, I'd start this day slow. I would go to the I'd go to the lab and like maybe like be there for 3-4 hours. But a lot of times I do feel like I don't want to work from the lab. So there's a lot of options there in the college. Like you can actually sit different. Like I think you have CCD in IITK, similar to that. We have a lot of places that you can sit, hang out. And there's also like one thing actually that is very important to note for me, at least, is in PhD and in a lab environment pre-COVID, I think a lot of ad hoc things come up. Like you're in the lab, you see your professor, he suddenly needs something, or like he suddenly wants you to talk to some faculty candidate. He suddenly wants you to talk to an undergrad student who wants to do research with your lab. And it becomes it's very easy to lose track of time or to lose time. So that's always there. So like I start the day, I think I'll accomplish some XYZ tasks during the day. I finish X, but somehow it's already evening. And so like, yeah, you can plan your day very well ahead, but you also have to have like enough you have to accommodate these ad hoc tasks and also your mood. So I think like there's also it's also very important. It plays a very important role. Sometimes you feel like working, sometimes you don't. So your plans also have to be, I think, flexible enough to accommodate these kinds of ad hoc things. So my days usually look like that. So a couple of days in the week I'm very productive, a couple of days I'm not. So I can't say I recommend this lifestyle or this work style, but it's also a way. I just want to put it out that if you're someone who likes to work like this or who's more dependent, it's not like, it's very, I think it's also similar to your previous questions. A lot of people do think that PhD needs like, you know, a lot of discipline, a lot of it does need discipline, but not like, it's not like if you can't work every day some X number of hours, you're not suitable for PhD. It's definitely not the case. You can still like manage your week or plan your week such that you still put in a lot of hours, even though like one day you don't feel like working and you take it easy and you just like chill out the whole day, but the other day you slog and like put in a few more hours. Yeah.
So, the COVID era has definitely affected all of us. So, how exactly, like, so what are the changes that have sort of happened, and do you think there are any transformations that have taken place in the entire like research field or the community? And do you think these effects or these, the impacts are permanent, and there might be some things that we carry forward from the COVID era into the future when things do return to normal?
So
That's definitely okay. Pramad, go on. Go ahead.
yeah, so from a computer, I can talk from a computer science standpoint, like yeah, I mean Bhuvesh might also add to this. From a CS standpoint, as far as I've seen, yeah, like COVID does, like obviously it has affected everyone to different extents. But for me, especially in a research environment, I think things have been more or less the same. So as I mentioned, I'm already someone who's like a very more dependent. So like now I don't even have the forcing function of going to the lab. So I can just work from my house, which is actually very good for me. It worked out well for me. So my randomness actually increased, but then it also increased my productivity. So it works differently for different people. Like people who had really wanted to go to the lab or who are like very productive going, I know a lot of people who are very productive in the lab, and they had to really find alternatives, like moving their desk to like, you know, like into the living room, or like not keeping your personal life and your work different is very difficult, especially in this kind of an environment. That's given, that's your personal work wise. From a field wise, research field wise, in computer science at least, I did not find a lot of difference. One thing I actually found that everyone has become more productive in general, and the research output from different labs and like the field in general has become like, I saw an increase, which is, I guess in a way it's good news that it's actually not affected things a lot. But I think when things start settling down again, there's always this spike or this drop when things change, but then they eventually reach an equilibrium and things again, like I think, go back to their normal. So that is what I've observed personally. Yeah, I'm curious to see what Bhuyesh and Vikram think.
For me personally, okay, Vikram, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't want to.
Go on, Bhuvesh, you can.
So I was saying for me personally, yeah, so since I don't go to the lab anymore, I would say the work-life boundary has become much more weakened. Like I start work randomly late, and like I would work late into the night, and yeah, don't do anything during the day and start my work day at like 6 p.m. or like 8 p.m. some days. It's become very random. That is true. Some people, I agree. For some people, it might have increased productivity. For me, it has definitely not. It has definitely decreased. So I guess different things work for different people. Also, I guess as a general field, I think, yeah, a lot of things have transformed to online, which I think might have longer consequences. Like earlier, I had collaborations with like people in different universities, but like usually, like most collaborations you do were for me were in person. And like I would collaborate with like one person who's not in the university, and like they would join the meeting by video call, and while everyone else is in a room doing research, like my professor and I, and someone joins with the video call, right? But now like I have so many collaborations and all of them are online, in the sense that even if things go back to normal, they're still going to be online, because I'm working with someone in like Bay Area, I'm working with researchers from Facebook, I'm working with people in Germany, I'm working with people in University of Pennsylvania, I'm collaborating with University of Washington. Even if I start going to office, it still has to be online. So it's in that sense, like I feel like the barrier for doing online research has gone down, which makes it possible to have collaborations anywhere in the world, which I feel is a good thing, in the sense that like earlier people were more apprehensive, but now since everything's online, yeah, you can just work with anyone. So that is something made good. Also, I've seen conferences, everything's become online. And I think some of these conferences are going to like stay in a hybrid model, because being online allows people from like different countries to like still present their work, because not everyone can afford to like attend the conference in person, because that requires like traveling there, hotels, and like there are visa restrictions for some countries. So in a way that has also like made things easier for people to attend, but it's also made it like less personable. Like earlier when you would attend a conference, like you would go into conference mode, and like, yeah, you're there for the conference, you're attending talks. In the evening, you're hanging out with people, attending like social events organized by different companies or stuff like that. But now it's online, it just feels like another day when a conference starts and you just log into another video call. So in a way, it's not as exciting to attend conferences than it was, but it has also made them more accessible. And it's same for like talks. Like now most talks are recorded, most talks are online. I can attend a seminar series that's happening in Harvard, like which wouldn't have been recorded otherwise, or like IIS and like Berkeley, and like there are some institutes which have very, very nice talks usually. And usually they weren't really like streamed. Now everything's being streamed online. So you have access to so many talks, so many, but it's also becomes overwhelming, because you have access to so much and you don't feel like doing anything, because they're like, okay, earlier you had one talk to attend, now you have access to 20 talks, so you won't watch anything. So it can have both negative and negative consequences. But I think going forward, I think it has some positive consequences, that in the sense I feel most talks will be recorded and they'll make it available for the future as well. I believe people will be uh, more open to having online collaborations, because there people have set up like whole uh, people have streamlined the setup of doing research online, right? Like when I do research online, there's a shared like whiteboard we space share on an iPad. Everyone I know has an iPad or a tablet, so everyone can write on that. And there's screens are shared, you can screen share and stuff. So it is sort of like you're working in the same room, because you can still write and stuff. And since people have developed these tools, I feel like going forward, a lot of online collaborations, I feel like, are here to stay. And I do feel like when office reopens, as Pramod said, that I used to go to work every day. I don't know if I will, because I'm gotten so used to not going to lab. So yeah, it does require a lot of discipline, getting up and saying that, okay, I have to go to work every day, when no one's really checking up on you, right? No one cares if you didn't come to work today. So it's you have to make the decision that I have to go to the lab and work today. And I used to do that, because like if I didn't go, I wouldn't do anything. But now it's like I'm forced to work at home. So I'm like, okay, maybe if things go back, I might still just go to work like 2-3 times a week. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
So
think Vikram accidentally disconnected. There might have been some issue. Um, Vikram is back again. Hello, Vikram.
Yeah, sorry. I think I got cut off because of the internet. Yeah. Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Is Bhuvesh?
Yes. Yeah. No, so
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. Yeah, just quickly, I can add that I think my experience was more similar to Bhuvesh's experience. I really like the in-person touch. Like when I am in the office, there are like 4 other people, and I like to talk to them. Also, asking for help is much more easier in an in-person setting. So in case I have a problem, I can just ask them that, hey, can you help me? In an online setting, it feels like, okay, I need to text them, we need to schedule a Zoom call, then we need to figure out things. So that has become harder. From a research point of view, I liked to discuss problems with my advisor, like on paper. That was like better, I think, for me as compared to Zoom. Like a lot of times we discuss like maths problems, and like we just love like doing it on paper together. And that has like become less prominent these days. So that I definitely miss. About conferences, I think the hybrid conference is a great idea that people who are not able to like join, they would be able to join. So I agree with that. But definitely, I would love to go in an in-person conference. Like that's one thing that I have missed in the past 2 years. Like before, like in 2019, I went to a conference and I vividly remember like the talks that I attended, the people whom I met. But recently, all the online conferences that I attended, like I hardly remember anything from that. Like I just know that, oh, okay, some talk I attended, that's it. Like it becomes just another day in your life, like as compared to an in-person conference. So yeah, but definitely going forward, the hybrid model is a good model, but I will look forward to things getting in person. Yeah.
Thank you, Vikram. So the next question that we have is a sort of general question for everyone. So what was your first tryst with your domain, and how or when did you decide that you want to further pursue your research interest in your particular domain?
Yeah, I can start maybe. Yeah, so I think, yeah, this is actually an interesting question. So for me, it might sound a bit like dramatic or something, but yeah, like in my fourth year, I think like this at IITK, the last semester, I took a course on computer architecture. And I'm not sure how many of you are in CS, but Professor Mainak Chaudhary, so he was the one who's taking the course. And yeah, like I absolutely enjoyed the course. It's like the last semester of the of our undergrad, and most of the people were kind of relaxed, and like they had gotten their jobs, they had like all everything settled, so like they were kind of chilling out, they were going trips to Goa, all that. But I was a bit more like, I got an offer, job offer, but I wasn't very sure if I should go. Like I somehow felt like I'm not ready for desk job yet. I'm not ready for going to a industry position yet. I don't know. It's just that feeling that you have, I guess, that maybe I'm not suited for it. I think there's a question later on. Sorry, guys, for spoiling it, Saksham. And so there's a question later on that asks, how our experience at Flipkart, like at our internship, undergrad internships was. My experience was a bit bittersweet. Like I did enjoy the money that we got for a change, and also like Bangalore, having friends. But I personally did not like the internships themselves. So I just not like the experience of working 9 to 5 under a manager and doing things that I personally felt really did not matter. So I personally did not really enjoy that. So I was always also already like a bit skeptical about industry at that point. I felt like I need a bit more specialization, a bit more experience before going to industry, so that I have a bit more autonomy, or a bit more like I can choose what I want. Even in industry, like maybe like even like 20 to 30% more say in what I want to do. So that is when I think I took that course, and I knew that I was interested in computer systems, the higher level area of computer systems, because all the courses in my third and fourth year I thoroughly enjoyed. So I took that course very seriously, and I had a lot of discussions with the professor. I had a really fun time. And luckily enough for me, I think after I graduated, there was this email circulated like just a few weeks before our email would get IITK email would get scraped. We got an email from this University of Edinburgh that, like, we're looking for an internship position, academic internship position in computer architecture. And I was like, anyways, I was not really that into jobs, so I just like applied there, and I got through. Like, I think IITK is, yeah, it's pretty good that way, that we do have a very solid structure. Like, at least I can talk for computer science, even electrical, and like a lot of the programs have a very solid course structure. So they really liked my work, my experience. So, and going to that internship was actually a very huge step for me. So I saw how firsthand how like a PhD student operates, how a researcher works, both my advisor and the other PhD students. And I think yeah, that was a very that was a very, very helpful experience. And like, one thing I would, again, another spoiler, I guess, but I would really recommend people to, like, if they have a chance to, like, explore research or like work in a research lab, I don't think there is any hurry to, like, directly start a PhD after your undergrad. It's fine, you can take it slow. And if you're not really sure, you can definitely apply for a research lab. And our courses and the academic research experience we have from undergrad is good enough a lot of times to get these internships. And for me, that experience was eye-opening. I felt like research is something that I would enjoy, like working in a research lab, having that independence, having that ownership of these projects would be very helpful for me. So then, like, yeah, I think my advisor there was also very, very um particular about applying. He motivated me a lot to apply for PhD positions. And one more thing he actually suggested, he said was, which is again, I think, a callback to our previous discussion, is he said, I was asking like, why not masters? Like, even masters gives me that specialization that I wanted. Like, why PhD? And what he told me was, PhD is just masters but better. In the sense that like, what he felt was that even if your program doesn't allow you to leave with a masters, and say after 2 or 3 years you want to quit your PhD program, you don't really like it, the experience you gained over 3 years, like being 3 years in a PhD program, is going to add to your experience and not be like you have quit before you're done your PhD. He was very certain that even if you don't get a master's after your 3 years, that those 3 years are actually very those 3 years that you have done is going to count, like academia or like industry positions, industry hiring actually accounts for that. So it wasn't a hard decision at that point. Then, like, I realized that, like, I can definitely pursue research. I came here, and then, like, here also I explored a lot, and then finally decided one area.
Thank you, Pramod. So the other panelists like to add on to their experience and how they got interested in their domains.
Yeah, I can add on to it. So for me, I think I decided very early on. So kind of like at the end first year, I joined this team, autonomous underwater vehicle team at Kanpur. And it was at a nascent stage at that time. Like, we were just starting to build, like, I think it was the second prototype of the AUV vehicle. And like, that was like 2 months of great work. I felt like we really pushed really hard to make that thing, and then like make it waterproof and like put all the electronics in there. There was a lot of design aspect, there was a lot of manufacturing aspect. So it was like a lot of hard work, I felt like. But at the end, I was trying to think that, okay, now what? Like, what do I want to do? So one of the things that I always missed was like working on problems like more advanced in nature. So that was a great problem statement, but it was more related to the implementation of the real thing. So you had to get that thing running in the inside water for this many hours. So that's like a very good engineering problem. But I was more interested towards the research problems, like how to perceive the environment based on the sensors that it has. Like, let's say you have camera sensors or radars, depth sensors, so those kind of things. So then I realized that, okay, time to move on to like a more research oriented project. And then I started to work under like a professor in my department. And thereon I started my journey of research. And that time I decided that I want to go for a PhD. But it's not necessary that you should directly decide for a PhD. Honestly, I feel like a MS master's is like a trailer for a PhD. Like, that's my understanding. You will do almost the similar things in PhD, just in a better way. Like you'll have more time to spend on things, you'll do more things in PhD. But if you are not sure that you want to go for PhD, then I would recommend going for a master's instead, and then like take it from there.
Yeah. For me, my first experience with doing computer science research was first semester, because in our, I don't know if it still happens, but ESC 101 had this option that if you are already good at programming, you can take an advanced track project. And in our year, they had like a programming contest in the first few weeks. It was like a something you might see on like Code Chef, like that kind of programming contest, and they selected some people who for whom they gave choice if you want to do an advanced track project. So I did like some graph theory and like some basically CS theory research. I wouldn't say research because I was mostly reading papers, some new stuff, but that's how I got introduced to research, you can say. And what I worked in my area, you can say machine learning. First time was through as science and technology S&T projects you take in your first summer. So in my first summer, like I was still working with the professor. I was Baswana. So in the Baswana was the one who took ISC 101. So I was still doing some CS theory problems with him, like reading papers and doing research. And I also started working on this S&T project, through which I got introduced to machine learning and computer vision, you can say. So that's how I got started working in it. And I remember in my first year, like some senior who was in their fifth year at that time, who was, I think, probably my ESC 101 TA tutor. I think they had told me that like if you have 3 summers in your 4 years, like I would suggest like you should try to explore. And he recommended that, okay, one summer you can do like an S&T project or an open source project like Google Summer of Code, or like work with a professor at Kanpur. One summer he suggested like go like do like a research internship in a research lab where you might want to consider grad school, and one try to do like a tech industry, like so that you know what it's like. And that's, I thought in my first year, like that was a great plan, and that's what I thought like I will try to execute towards my 3 summers. And my plan was, first year I did all of this. I like computer vision, and like I did machine learning. So I don't know if I took any classes in second year, but like I started like reading up more about it. I read some papers myself. I did some projects myself, and I applied for an internship in my second year to UC Berkeley for computer vision. I got that, but there was some like visa issues. So you have to, so that something happens to like, sometimes you'll get internships, but you won't get visa. So that's usually very sad. So I had some visa issues. They had, University of Berkeley had made some errors in the documents that they had sent. So I lost that internship. So I had to look for something, and I found this random software engineering internship in Dubai for working for Nike, which is, people were really like, okay, is this real, or is this like a scam? Like, who goes to Dubai for an internship, right? Like, especially for software engineering, and who works at Nike? Like, Nike is not a tech company. So so it was a strange internship for me. Like, it was just like me making they were doing some events, and they needed some website and like some ticketing system for that, which I made. It was a fun experience, but I felt like, okay, what is this? And I didn't really enjoy that. I felt like, okay, I did not know web development, and they wanted me to make a website. I don't know why they even hired me. So it was completely from scratch. I was learning web development. And the team was very small, so I had no help, completely independent, and like reading so much stuff. I felt like, okay, software engineering is fun, but like I think it's more fun if you have like a team environment. Like, individually just giving me a big project, then this is like irritating to me. So I think I think I did 2 months or something there, and they wanted me to like spend the whole summer, but I like, okay, I want to go back to Kanpur. And that's when I emailed Microsoft Research, some researchers at Microsoft Research, and I had already like started talking to them. So when I lost my Berkeley internship, I had emailed Microsoft Research to just start working remotely with them. because I was going to Dubai. So I had started reading some papers in my field when what I'm doing my research now, machine learning theory. So I started working with Pratik Jain at Microsoft Research, and I was reading some papers and stuff. So I came back to Kanpur and I started working with him. And he told me that his postdoc, Purushottam Kar, was joining IIT Kanpur the next semester. So I started working with Purushottam before he joined. And I think that's how I got into ML theory, like through Pratik and through Puru. And like I did not know anything about it before they introduced me to it. So I read papers, we worked on some problems, and I really enjoyed it. And I felt that okay, that felt more research to me than computer vision research at that point, because I felt computer vision research to me felt like more like engineering, because it's like you have some idea, you code it up, and then a lot of work is spent on like trying to get the number of accuracy high on this data set by tuning parameters. And like I felt that was like a very ad hoc and engineering type of work, which is like it's still very interesting work. I'm not saying anything against it. Like that was my perception as a third year undergrad, you can say. And I thought, okay, I'm enjoying ML theory more, where I'm like actually doing math and like I'm proving theorems about my algorithms and not just saying that, yeah, the accuracy is higher than something else. So I really enjoyed that. And that's how I started working in it more. And in my third year, I had I applied to some internships. I don't remember what till my third year, like I was still sort of applying everywhere. Like I hadn't completely left computer vision. So I got a computer vision internship. I got some internship in computational biology and a couple of machine learning theory internships. And that's when I really sat down and thought, okay, I don't know, I just applied randomly, but now I really need to think what do I really like the most? Because a third year internship can like really help you decide your future, because this was the time when I was actually going to experience a research lab, what it's like working there, and like you get a letter of recommendation which helps in your grad school applications as well. And I did some self introspection, and I realized, okay, I really enjoy working in ML theory the most. So I went to Johns Hopkins, where I worked with a professor like as I work now, because it's basically the same experience as you would have as a PhD student, but just at a smaller scale. Like you have an independent project, you are given freedom, you decide how the problem scope works. And I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed that. And I thought, okay, this is way more fun than my engineering internship last year, which I felt was like very random. So, and at that point, I also knew that like I enjoy research in general. So I knew by that time, you can say by the end of my third year, I knew I wanted to do a PhD, and I was just trying to see like what area motivates me the most, and does it motivate me enough to do a PhD? I was leaning towards it. But after my internship, I was like, okay, yeah, this is the way to go. And yeah, this is what I want to do. But the point is that when you do that, you still have to be a little bit sure, because you have to take some risks. Because like I didn't sit for like SPO internships, which happen at the end of third year. And like if you want to go to an industry after I got undergrad, that's a very good opportunity, because you get an internship, you get a PPO, you get a job, right? Like it sets up a trajectory for you. And like going against it, that okay, I'm not going to set for SPO in third year or whenever, it's like a decision that you have to make early on, right? Because the companies just come, and you can't just get an internship and then later decide, okay, I'm going to do a research internship. I don't know if they allow that now. In our times, they didn't allow that. Like you can't just take a internship and just say like, bye bye, I'm going for research. So yeah, so it's risks, but like once I had some experience working with professors, I think that's the only way you can know. Like just go and do research, start working with people, and if you like it, you will know. And yeah, just explore more. Just spend more time, and you'll know if you like it or not. And that's how I knew I liked it.
Thank you so much, Bhuvesh, for your insights here. So I have a specific question to Vikram here. So like your department at IIT Kanpur was aerospace engineering, and now you're pursuing robotics and intelligent systems. So like how flexible is this process of changing your field, like from your department, and even explore that field such that you are motivated to pursue higher in that? And like not just in terms of IIT Kanpur, but also in acceptances to foreign universities.
Right. So one interesting thing about my trajectory has been that I have been kind of all over the place. So I started with aerospace engineering. My major was in that, and then I applied for a minor in Kanpur. So that was in electrical engineering, because I was most interested into like control theory, and like I was working on like unmanned aerial vehicles and their control, like how to design their control trajectory, those kind of things. And my internship was also like related to the same area. But when I was applying, like I had this perception, and actually I think that is true, that if you apply for like electrical or like CS, actually CS is not that related. Like at that point, it was not related to my field, what I was working on, but electrical was definitely related. But I was looking at like people, like none of the like graduate students I had seen were like that big of a shift, like from mechanical or aerospace to electrical. So I felt that definitely it will be harder to get into like electrical engineering like department. So that's why I was only focusing on like mechanical and aerospace, like these two. And the shift from aerospace to mechanical is definitely not that hard, because we share a lot of the courses in both the departments. So I'll say that it was not very difficult. Like in some places I applied for mechanical, in some places I applied for aerospace. In fact, like the same faculties were involved in like both the projects sometimes. Like they were like named under the mechanical department, but they used to do projects in aerospace as well. So that was kind of okay. But when I came here and then I was exploring the research area and all those things, so I felt like a lot of like I joined in a mechanical engineering department, and the professor with whom I was working, he works on the field of like perception, visual perception, and like other radar sensor data, these kind of things. And then I realized that a lot of it involves like computer science knowledge as well. So then I applied for a minor in computer science. So already 4 departments covered. so basically, yeah, I have been into a lot of areas. But if you talk to a roboticist, they will tell you that to make a robot work, definitely you need a lot of knowledge from all the fields. Like it involves design knowledge, it involves electrical systems knowledge. It also involves computer vision, machine learning these days. And like if it's an unmanned aerial vehicle, or if it's a quadrotor, then you need to know the aerodynamics and all those things. So I guess like all of them combined together definitely gives me an edge over like understanding the system in a better way. So I really enjoyed like having all this knowledge to me. Yeah. Okay. But you shouldn't be deterred, I think, when you're applying, let's say. So if it's a change like from aerospace to mechanical, it's not that much of a big deal. If you're applying for masters, then you can go for like electrical CS as well. Like that shift is also fine. I know people from electrical and mechanical like who apply for MS and CS and electrical as well. So that is an option. PhD sometimes becomes difficult because you do not have sometimes that background knowledge. So like you need some background courses to like apply to those fields. Otherwise, like you may not be able to like proceed ahead. Mostly because, you know, sometimes you need to TA as well. Like as a part of your PhD, you need to TA some courses. So if you haven't done those courses before, how are you going to TA them? So that's why, yeah. Okay.
Now we'll just slightly move on to the application processes that you went through. So how did each of you go about selecting the programs and universities you wanted to apply to? And what do you think are the key roles and skills? Like what are the key profiles that the universities or the labs you applied to are looking for?
I can start. So usually like I had discussed with seniors like how to like select the universities, and the recommendation that I got was like try to go for like some like high ranked universities, or like some things which you feel are ambitious for you. Like I knew that, for example, in MIT, there was this particular lab under Professor Nicholas Roy. I really wanted to go, but I felt like my profile was not good enough for that. But anyways, like that was in my ambitious category. So there were like 2 or 3 ambitious ones. After that, there are some universities which are your target universities, where you feel that you look into the profile of the graduate students and you see that there are people who have similar background to you have been selected in that universities. So those are my like target universities, those I selected. And then there are some like safe universities. So like 2 to 3 safe universities. One of them was Texas A&M, where I did my internship. And like I felt like I did a decent job over there and the professor was happy with me. So they were like okay with selecting me for the graduate admissions as well. So that was one of my options. And one master's in Maryland and similarly another PhD in some other place. So in total, I applied to like, I think 9 or 10 places, like that was my number. So, and the way I was going for the labs was first I used to like, so I knew about some researchers in general because I had read some papers during my internship. So I was looking into their universities and looking at other researchers who do similar work. And then I read a few of the papers and looked through like where they are publishing, like how active they are they very active in publications or like they are old professors. Like usually it's better, like I feel it's better for me to work with like a younger person as compared to old person. So those are the kind of things that I was looking for, like how many people are in the lab, is the professor taking any students? Like, let's say in the past, if the professor has not taken any student, like for the last 3-4 years, then definitely you should get a signal that probably this professor is not going to take another student in the next year. Or at least you should confirm with them first by emailing or something like that. I think I tried emailing, sometimes they do not respond. I think it depends from professor to professor. It varies across the country. So yeah, those are kind of the things, like look into the lab, if possible, talk to the grad students in the lab and see how often they're publishing, and like your area should match, your area of interest should match with that. So usually like I was writing the names of like two professors in my SOP that with whom I want to work with, like the top 2 preferences, and that's how I went forward.
Yeah, for me, I would say it was some ways similar and some ways different. So depends on like what other options you have as well where you're applying for grad school. Like some people, like for example, Pramod did a research internship before he applied for grad school. So similar to that, like there is also these tons of, especially in CS, there is these tons of programs like these brain fellowship. Like now I think it's called just AI fellowship. Facebook has an AI fellowship, and I had a research fellowship RF position at Microsoft Research, which is like a 2-year program at because I was working with Microsoft Research Bangalore, so I already had that position, and which is like historically that's like a very nice position that like more everyone who I've seen have spent 2 years there ended up being in like CMU Berkeley or something like that. But it comes at a cost, like it's 2 years of your life. So for me, like when I was applying for PhD programs, I first of all only applied for PhD programs because I felt going to that RF was probably better than a master's for me. So I felt like, okay, like if I want to do a PhD eventually, then I don't see the point of going for a master's, because masters are, it's not guaranteed that the masters will be free and stuff, right? Because there are funding issues with masters. With PhDs, usually you're like, you have guaranteed funding, but the masters like you don't. So I didn't want to like worry about all of that because I had an RF position already. And also, since I knew that like I have a very good backup, I didn't apply to any safe schools. So my goals was like only target schools or like some 1 or 2, like you as like he mentioned, like what do you call, like prestigious ambitious schools, like where you don't think you'll get in, but you still should apply definitely, because it's a random process. Actually, I didn't apply to some schools where I thought I didn't get in. And now I actually sometimes, like, not now, but like after some time, I actually regret it, because I do think that graduate admissions is a very random process. It is somewhat of a coin toss. So like it feels like, okay, it's $100 and like some effort on your letter writers. But I feel like if there is some university you really want to be in, just apply. Like, even if you think that you have no chance of getting in. But because I didn't do that, I was just thinking, okay, I shouldn't put too much pressure on my like letter writers. I should apply to less universities and focus more on schools which I think I can get into. So that's what I did. But my suggestion would be to just at least like top 3-4 schools that you really want to visit, definitely apply there, and then target school based on, you see what profiles of other grad students are there, and then you decide on the basis of that. And also, like, a very good resource is like your advisors. Like, you do, when you're applying for PhD, it's assumed that like you need 3 letter of recommendations, right? So it's assumed that you're doing research with some folks, and the research you're doing with people, like, they have experience, they know stuff, they know who are the other peers in the community, and they can guide you towards it too. So I had a lot of help from like my advisors at Microsoft Research and Purushottam Puru. So like I had prepared a list of universities and potential collaborators, and I went and I discussed it with them. Like, this is all what I'm thinking. Like, I remember like the first list I made, like I had much more safe schools and stuff in the list. And like the moment I sent it, I got a call from Pratik Jain. He's like, why are you applying to this place? Like there's just one person who works there, and like, what if it doesn't work out for you? Like, you so you have to think of these things as well. Like, if you apply to a university where there's only one person in your area, and what if you have like a personality mismatch? It's not just about the research, right? Like, this person has to be your very close collaborator for 5 years, who's going to be your advisor. So you have to like think about everything, in the sense that you can't take all that risk and put all your coins in one basket, right? So that's how I decided. I think I applied to 7 schools, where I think 2 were maybe like ambitious, and 5 I thought I had some chance of getting. I think I had 3 accepts. And when I was deciding to accept the university, it was quite funny that like one of the professors I'd applied to at University of Michigan, and I had an accept from University of Michigan, and I also had an accept from Georgia Tech. The professor from Michigan emailed me from his Michigan email address saying, "Hey Bhuvesh, congratulations, I want to talk to you about your accept at Georgia Tech." And I was confused, like, well, how does he know that I haven't accepted Georgia Tech, and why does he want to talk about it? But that professor was moving to Georgia Tech, and he is my advisor now. So like, so that's how it worked out. Like, I hadn't applied to him in Georgia Tech, I had applied to him in University of Michigan. So that's how it worked out for me. But yeah, I just talk to grad students, see what other people are doing, talk to your advisors, they know more. Like, one place I was considering applying, and my advisor like outright told me, like, don't apply. This person I feel is going to, they were their collaborator, so they're like, don't apply. I know this person is thinking of like leaving academia and like joining an industry position in the next 1 or 2 years. So like, that might be a risky bet on your part, like, to join that group. So that happened. Like, that person like now spends majority of their time at like some company, which is probably not ideal for grad students. I mean, if you have professors who spend time at university at companies, it's good in the sense that they take you with them. So like, I have friends whose advisors work at like Facebook AI Research, and their whole lab, I feel like every summer is at Facebook AI Research because of them. So in a way it helps, but that also means that for 9 out of, not 9, maybe for 8 out of 12 months, his advisor is not in Atlanta, which is now fine for online. But before COVID, yeah, for 8 months out of 4, his advisor was gone. And I did not want to be in such a situation. And I was glad that my Microsoft Research advisor told me that this is the case. So that's how I went about doing my applications, because I knew that I had a backup. So I think it matters, like, what are your options if not a PhD? Because you could apply to 10 schools and not get anything, right? So yeah, you have to think about backups too.
Yeah, so I'll quickly add a few points to what Bhuvesh and Vikram said. So, for my experience, I think I already mentioned that I did a research associate. I went for a research associate position after my undergrad. So, using that, I want to like actually definitely say one thing, that you can take it easy, like you can take it slow. It's fine. Like you don't need to apply as soon as your third year is done, or like as soon as your fourth year is done. Like you don't need to start your PhD right away. You don't need to start your masters right away. You have some time. Don't really fall into that fallacy that like you're losing time, or that you don't have enough time. It's fine. Like I think it's much better to go to a place or a position that you are sure about, and that you know that you'll enjoy, than to like apply and just go somewhere in haste, or just go somewhere because it's a top rated university, or just go somewhere because that professor is a big shot. I mean, like there's a lot of these kind of things do happen in research applications, but it's very important that you feel connected with what they're doing, and you feel that you can add, or you can contribute to that research direction. And coming to that, from looking at that from a different perspective, like how to apply, like keeping these things in mind. For I would say, like I think a lot of the discussion went with like how to know where to apply, or like what kind of how to build the experience, something like that. So I would say a good litmus test would be, if you're struggling to find letters of recommendation for your PhD, it means you probably need more experience. So better try to add to your experience, and like say like try to apply for internship positions, or like Bhuvesh said, the RF position at Microsoft Research, or like things like that. There are a lot of industry, like not just industry, but even like in academia, there are some positions people look for internships all the time. So it's better to add to your experience, and make sure that you have those good letters of recommendation, than to just apply in haste and then like waste a lot of time in that process. The second is, again, like if you're not able to write an SOP that is personalized, if you're not able to like thoroughly like actively appreciate what a lab or what a school is doing, and like be able to describe that in your SOP, probably you need to look more, or like you need to get more experience and then apply. And third is also that, like in research, like do you have enough experience? Like it might seem like undergrad you do a UGP, like there are UGPs, right? Like I did 2 or 3 UGPs, and then like I was like, oh yeah, I'm a researcher, like I can do very well in my research program. But then like I went to this Edinburgh internship, and it was like a smack in the face. Like it was so different, and so there's no like I think the professors in IITK, they mellow down. They're like very reasonable with you. They're not, the expectations are not that high. But when I went to that Edinburgh internship, I saw that it's a lot more rigorous, it's a lot more intense. So always make sure you have enough experience. Again, for that, it's very important that you come out of that mindset that you don't have enough time. It's a lot better to get more experience before your PhD than to find these things during your PhD, because it's a 5 or 6 year commitment. And think about it that way, that like it's better to waste 1 or 2 years before than to waste your 5 or 6 years thinking that you'll do something that you're not even sure if that is the right thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And coming to the application itself, yeah, Bhuvesh, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing.
Yeah, so application itself, so my application is also similar. So again, like Bhuvesh said, he had a lot of one thing that you can find with Bhuvesh's input and even Vikram's input is they had a lot of guidance when they applied, in the sense that they got inputs from really good people. Like Bhuvesh got them from Microsoft Research, and I think Vikram was also mentioning that a lot of seniors who he worked with helped him. So that's also another litmus test. So you do have to have enough guidance, in the sense that like if you worked with someone close enough, you're taking letters of recommendations from them, and you expect that they have a very personalized letter of recommendation for you, then it's very likely that they'll also help you in your application process. So like, and you shouldn't hesitate to ask them. Like I think they're more than happy to help you. Like they have a lot more connections than you think they have. And these connections are really, really important in applications. For example, like one thing is their websites, most of the process websites are extremely outdated. So you might think that they're working on some problem, then you apply, and then like so for example, I came to here to Georgia Tech. I like two people, one of the person that I mentioned in my application, I came here to realize that they're not even working on that problem from like 5 to 10 years. So that was actually like a bad job from my end, not doing enough research before application, like while adding names, or like while talking to them, while adding their like say telling that you're interested with some person, make sure that you have enough contacts that can tell you what they're working on. And you could even approach their students. You could even like like approach or talk to their students on LinkedIn. A lot of the, like if someone approaches me, I would probably be more than happy to at least tell them what they're working on now. So don't hesitate. That's also one other avenue where you can actually make your SOPs personalized. So that's probably another important thing that I wish I knew when I was applying. And yeah, so I applied for like 6 to 7 places similar to Bhuvesh and Vikram, and I got in like at two places. And actually, like after coming here, so I applied as a computer architecture student. So my research was in computer architecture until my research associateship. But here in Georgia Tech, we had this facility to work with different professors in the first semester before deciding your advisor. And in that process, I actually found this professor who was working on video analytics and like an intersection of computer vision and database systems. And I felt that that was really interesting. And we worked for a semester and we both felt like it was a good match. So I ditched my original area and I shifted to it. So that's also actually quite easy if you have like, enough experience or enough. So once you get this admission, it's not like it's a rigid process. At least for the labs that I know, like the colleges that I know, they're actually quite chill. It's not at all a big deal to change your area or even like move out, go to a different university. Like all of these things are actually much easier in the US from what I've seen.
One thing I want to add to Pramod's point about like waiting. So one good point about waiting is that in US, especially in academia, like there is definitely hierarchy about like brand recognition for your university, which is not really like ideal, but it does happen. Like if you are from, let's say, a top ranked university, there are a lot of doors that open for you that wouldn't open for you if you were not in like a very nice university. For example, like if you are, let's say, a grad student in MIT, like any company you apply to, any place you apply to, you'll at least get an interview. But if you are, let's say, from a university that's ranked like not in the top 50 or top 100, like you might have to like your resume might not pass the interview screening or like things like that. That still happens, which is probably true for like India as well, right? Being from IIT gives you a lot of privileges just because of the name IIT Kanpur attaches to it, right? And that's true in the US as well. Like if you have a PhD from a prestigious university, that attaches like a lot of prestige to it, and it does make a lot of play. It doesn't affect that much in industry, but if you want to stay in academia, I feel that does have some influence. I mean, like it's very harder being from a lower rank university to end up getting a faculty position right after your PhD in a better ranked university, I would say. I mean, by here rankings are subjective, but that's like almost an unsaid truth, sort of. Like an MIT grad student can get a PhD job at CMU, but like maybe a Georgia Tech grad cannot get a job at MIT right out of PhD. So if you spend 2 years, get some experience, like do some RFs or like do some sort of more research, and that increases the category of universities you can get into. In the long term, like that 1 or 2 years can have a much bigger difference. So in that terms, I do feel like, yeah, where you go to grad school does actually matter a lot, especially if you're planning to stay in academia. So it's better to like, yeah, like spend some time doing that. And also, it's not just that like you are the one doing that, it's you're competing with people, and it has become fairly common that people are going for internships and like people are doing, so what they're calling it pre-doctoral now. So there's like postdoc, where you do like this 1 or 2 year job after your PhD before you start a full-time job. Now there's this huge category called pre-doc, which is like the RF I mentioned, or the thing Pramod did, like working for 1 year. And pre-docs definitely help people get into better universities. So, and definitely helps you like get an idea of like what actual research is like and if you want to do it or not without that much bigger of a commitment. And sometimes you end up making a lot of money also. Like I know people who did like Brain or Facebook AI pre-docs, and like they make like 100,000, and that like that I don't know after taxes how much they get, like, but whatever, they make a lot of money that definitely like affects your quality of life in the grad school program. Because having extra $50,000 in your bank balance while you're a grad student definitely changes how you view things and what do you view things, like how you think about like getting an apartment or getting a car, and like those small things I feel like can change the quality of your life throughout your PhD. So there are benefits of having some experience before in starting grad school, in sense that you might get better universities, you will have more money. So in that sense, it might be good.
Thank you so much, Bhuvesh. So move slightly towards the. So as you're working on intelligent robots, so like what is your opinion that the field, like the scope of which the field carries in the future as well? And like how can one explore this domain even like in their undergraduate days?
Saksham, is that a question to me?
Oh yes, I'm sorry, I'll repeat it. So like the question is regarding intelligent robots and this field. So like what is your opinion on the scope that this field carries in the future? And how can one, like if they want to explore this domain even in their undergraduate days?
Yeah. So I think from my perspective, the robotics in general, like right now, it's at a trajectory where it's going like exploding like quite a lot in the US as well as in India. There are a lot of robotics startups coming up both in the US and in India. I see like regularly. Like when I was applying for internships, I saw so many positions at robotics companies like self-driving, personal robots, human-robot interaction, these type of things. And also you can see that the big companies these days are investing so much into like robotics wing. For example, Amazon has its own robotics division. Uber has this. Apple and Samsung recently started a robotics division. There are like other things in India. You'll see that TCS Research is now investing into robotics. Like a lot of papers that I saw in some of the robotics conferences were from TCS. So definitely robotics is getting bigger and bigger these days. And at a university scale, like if you want to like get started, I feel like joining one of the teams in your first or second year, like the autonomous underwater vehicle team or Robocon or SA, like these are the places like when you join these teams, then you see the breadth of things that exist in robotics. Like it doesn't give detailed knowledge of one specific area in robotics, but definitely it gives you a flavor of what it all encompasses. So, for example, in the autonomous underwater vehicle team, I saw like the design challenges, then I saw the vision challenges, then there were some like other kind of like electrical circuitry issues, those kind of problems, and that can like be a stepping stone to the next problem. That what do you want to work on? So let's say you want to go for a master's something. So what is the problem that inspires you most? So for example, for me, like I really enjoyed to like develop perception algorithms, like which helps to develop an understanding of the surrounding. So let's say you have a camera or you have like depth sensors. So how do you see the world and make sense of it and then navigate through it? So that problem like felt very interesting to me. So then I started working on like some like control systems and all those problems, like where you have to navigate through an environment where there are like so many obstacles. And initially the work started with simulations. Like it was not like as exciting as working on a robot, but that was like, I will say, a foundation which was necessary for the next step to work with a real world system. So like I think that's a good trajectory. Like start with a university team, decide that which area inspires you, then go for a project with some professor. So there are great professors at Kanpur, like in different fields. You can join like mechanical, aerospace, electrical, any department, like based on your interest, and then do a project there. And then, as like you already know by now, that third year internship is kind of a very decisive factor for where you want to go. So if you really want to go in research, then try to go for a research internship at the end of third year. So that will give you a flavor of how research looks like in a PhD life. And then you'll do some independent research, and that will like make your like decision to go for graduate schools like more firm. Like it will be a decisive factor. So I know some people like who did research internships and they didn't like it and they decided to go for industry. So that's also fine. Like at least that helps you in deciding what you want to do with your life. So I guess that's a good trajectory to go on. And if you are not set for PhD, like you're not sure that whether you should go for a PhD right now, so definitely I'll suggest like going for a master's first, and then like you'll do very similar stuff just on a smaller scale as compared to a PhD. Yeah.
Okay. Just okay, adding a point on the master's programs, you should look into it because not all universities have like masters by research. Especially at Georgia Tech, for example, there is 3 masters. You can do masters by courses, masters by project, or masters by thesis. And masters by courses is just similar to, I feel like, just doing a bunch of courses at IIT Kanpur. So I feel so you don't do any research, you just take a bunch of classes and you get a master's. So to get a flavor of PhD, if that's the goal of your master's, make sure you're going into a master's program or like a place where people actually do research and not just take courses and graduate with courses. Because that is a case in a lot of master's programs.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Like there should be a thesis component to the master's program which you join for like if you want to get a flavor of PhD. Otherwise, it's just like undergrad all over again.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the next questions that we have, so it's mostly aimed towards machine learning. So it will be the domains of Bhuvan and Pramod. So machine learning is an accelerating field that has found its place in multitude of research applications and industrial purposes. So in this light, how important is ML to future research, irrespective of like what field it is being applied to? And in your opinion, what is the future of machine learning, and what does it have in what does it hold for budding researchers, and how does one get into it?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. Yeah, right now I would say yes, machine learning is very hot and it has blown up a lot actually in the last 10 years or so. Like if you see the size of the conferences, like NeurIPS, for example, it's the flagship conference. But the size of the conference itself, like the number of submissions, accepts, people who attend has blown up a lot. So it is a very growing field, but it's also a very huge field right now. I feel there are so many groups working on a bunch of things, and there's so many challenges being solved. But it does feel like, in the sense that now there is so much happening in the field, it's hard to keep track of what all is happening. Because like earlier, I remember like you could at some point like go through a list of papers of an accepted conference and like see what might interest you. But like if you look at NeurIPS, 2,000 papers get accepted. Like you can't really scroll everything and like see what really interests you. So in a way, like there is some push for like smaller conferences and like smaller area specific conferences and like focusing on your area. So for ML, yes, in general, there is a lot of things to do, but it's so wide that it's like hard to talk about ML as one general entity right now, because every specific field in ML, I would say, has a different trajectory that people are going towards. And it's also true that like there is a lot of scope for applying ML in different fields, which I feel is still at somewhat of a nascent state. It's still growing up a lot, but there is still a lot of scope there, because I see like Pramod is working on like using AI in the intersections of like AI and systems, right? Like I have another friend who like did her PhD in stuff like this, like applying machine learning algorithms for like scheduling processes and like stuff like that. And in physics, people are applying deep learning. Recently, there was some breakthrough where they use some techniques in physics and deep learning where they use some techniques in deep learning to simulate something in physics. So people are like more and more fields are like finding out about ML. So I would say in those other fields, there is still a lot more scope to apply very basic techniques from machine learning and like bringing those ideas into their fields, because it's happening, but it's not completely there yet. People are using ML in more and more like biology, physics, everywhere they're using, but it's still, I would say, very nascent. So in that sense, I think it's going to blow up even more. Like I expect like more and more people are going to like try these ideas and using techniques from ML and go there. And in terms of ML itself, ML research itself, I feel like that also like changes directions and like the focus of the community changes. You can say a whole community changes a lot as well. So recently, like there has been, or maybe it's because of the circles I am in, but I feel like there has been a lot of talk about making AI systems more like reliable and talking about ethics about artificial intelligence and like how do you make them more accountable and how do you make people trust AI technologies, because AI is coming everywhere, right? So I feel like that is like a new growing area where like people are studying and putting in more efforts about like, yeah, how to make it, yeah, how to make fair and responsible artificial AI. And I feel like that's a very big focus of the community right now. Like now, even in like conference deadlines, like now when you submit to conferences, they ask you to like write a paragraph of the ethical implications of your research, or like will your research be able to be used for like some wrong purposes. So in general, I feel like yeah, it's growing, and but there is also like some uh, talks about like how fast is it growing and like do we really understand the implications of what it has on us, right? Because like it is a feedback loop and it influences our lives a lot. So I feel that's a very big focus of research. And in theory, I feel like although like the application part of machine learning is moving at a very fast pace, like there are new models coming in, like people have state of the art work on like everything, and you see these huge models being released by OpenAI and like Google and all, which they train on like trillions of data points and use like millions of, I don't know, millions of dollars worth of processing to generate these. So in application side, yes, models are getting very good at like doing stuff. But I feel like on the theory aspect on which I work, it is still fairly limited. Like even for deep neural networks, there are like basically very few results on generalization, very few results on like very few theoretical results about these big models. There are results about like making, because in theory, when you're proving theorems, you have to make assumptions, right? So a lot of theoretical work is based on assumptions, which is somewhat away from like real applications which these companies are doing right now. So I feel there is still a lot of open questions and a lot of gap in this field that needs to be closed. Especially, I feel in theory, like if you're interested in theory, then there is still a lot to do. There is still so many open problems. And yeah, so I feel like in general, there is a lot to do in the field. And yeah, I feel it's a growing field, and I feel it's going to be even bigger. As an undergrad, what you can do is like, yeah, take classes, make sure you learn about AI, even if you're not planning on doing research in AI, because if you're doing aerospace or if you're doing some other department, maybe you could like find some insights from AI which you could use in your particular research field. So I would say, yeah, and IIT campus actually has a lot of good folks like who work in this field. So like go like do projects with them, and I feel like in most cases professors are more than happy to like have motivated students working on research problems for them. So like as an undergrad, that's the best way to do it. Like take classes, talk to professors, take courses, do UGPs, and get yourself more acquainted, and don't worry about like AI dying as a field, because there's lots of scopes, there's lots of jobs, especially if you do applied stuff. I would think like finding a job is not hard, at least right now. I don't know about the future, but right now I feel like people who do like applied machine learning research, if they want to go to industry, they usually end up with like very high salaries and stuff. So it's actually it's a nice place to be. I feel like especially if you're in applied ML, like going into industry, yeah, you get like a nice jobs and like recognition in the community and stuff. So I feel it's fun. It's a fun community, I feel. But it's a huge community. So there's like our problems with it too, like in the sense that like, yeah, you feel like you're never in the core, right? Like ML theory, I might feel like I'm in the core because we attend a smaller conference, which like 300 people attend. But as an ML community in general, where I go to Neurips and there are 10,000 people there, I don't feel like, yeah, this is like, there's like there's that cohesiveness in the community, because there are smaller sub-communities which I would say are stronger. And it depends on which sub-community you end up being a part of. But overall, I feel like, yeah, ML is growing, and it's going to keep on growing and expand into other disciplines as well.
Yeah, so I think I have a kind of a different experience. Like Bhuvesh and I share, I think, a different experience, because like I am not a fundamental machine learning researcher, but I use machine learning techniques for my research. So one thing that before going into the details of like my particular field, I would say that what Bhuvesh said is very important, that Neurips, for example, the core conferences in machine learning are so big right now that it's very, very easy to get lost in the crowd. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's good. Machine learning is good. Machine learning is the hot topic, is the fad right now. And like, yeah, like machine learning is everywhere. But don't fall into the trap that, like you have to be in machine learning right now to be successful, or that like machine learning is where it's at. It's not, it's good, it's cool, but it's not really in a situation, in a place where right now you just go into machine learning and you'll be successful. It's definitely not. It's very, very easy to get lost in the crowd. And even industry, I've been hearing cases where they are actually expecting a lot more specialization just because of how many people apply for a single position. And they always find people who are a lot more specialized, and in the sense that they have a PhD in the exact topic that they want. So it's not the case that once you do some machine learning courses and you have good understanding of machine learning, your career is set. What I do is more along the term. And what I do, and I guess another way to look at it is that, say you have a problem in hand, like when you're doing it, because it was a research discussion, I'm going with the assumption that you have a problem that intrigues you, a problem that interests you. Then it's okay if it uses machine learning, if it's okay if it involves machine learning, but focus on the problem, not on machine learning. Like in my case, the problem is database systems. Like it's completely in database systems, how to build a database system that can process videos. So the problem is, like from the sound of it, in a single statement, I wouldn't say anyone would realize or anyone would even know that it requires or it needs machine learning. We can very well build a video database system that doesn't require machine learning at all. Why I am using machine learning is because it makes life easier. It makes this problem a lot more practical. It makes it deployable. So I am using machine learning because it has that potential, not because machine learning is huge. So make sure that you have that perspective. Like what Bhuvesh is doing is very different actually. He's in the core of machine learning, I would say. Like machine learning theory is I would say it's still a very budding or a nascent field. And that's also because of how severely we lack in understanding deep learning models and in understanding machine learning still. So what that kind of research, like I am pretty sure a lot of the time he spends is on math. So make sure that you realize that it's not that he's working on machine learning all the time. It's not that he's training models all the time. He's actually working on math. And that's a very fundamental thing. So if you think that all the time you want to just spend on training models, and that is, like, that's very interesting, like you import scikit-learn and you apply a few models to a problem, then like it's gonna be a successful career path. I think it's not, and I think you should be very careful in deciding, or in even like understanding the scope of machine learning, and like how it is huge already. So it is developing. I agree. It's a very big. It's still growing at a rapid pace. I agree, but it's also already very, very huge. So if you just have a basic set of skills in ML, I don't think it means anything at this point. So I would say a better strategy is to find a problem that really interests you, and that problem is a lot more interesting than what you apply to solve it. So if it needs machine learning, so be it, it's good. And if you're in that process, if you're learning machine learning, if you're applying machine learning, it'll add to your expertise, it'll add to your profile. That's good, but don't forget the basic problem that you're working on.
Thank you, Pramod. So now we just go on to some questions that we got from a forum that we had floated. So one specific question comes is that if someone comes from a department that is not computer science, then what is the scope of them continuing into ML? So, so do you think the phrase that you need to have a profile of a PhD student to even apply for a PhD in ML is true? Like, so how does one from not a CSE department try to get into these fields?
Okay, I mean the most is like if you really want to do that, like classes, you can still take classes in CS. You could take minors. Plus, electrical engineering has a bunch of classes on which are related to the field. Different departments have different classes, and I saw that like IIT Kanpur is starting this data science undergrad, where like that department, I'm assuming, will have this bunch of new electives which they will introduce. Which I'm sure, like even if you're not part of that department, you can still take those electives. I would say that is the way to like get your foot into the door by taking classes, starting with that. And after that, even if you're not in the department, you can still like do research in the sense like you could approach professors and you could tell them that you're interested and you've taken some classes and like you want to try this field out. I mean, because I've seen people who are not in CS in different departments, but still they did research with professors in computer science, and they did like PhDs or masters in CS. So it is possible. It is possible if you want to do something in CS, like specifically if you want to do in machine learning, for example, you could take classes and get into a PhD program. If you can't get into a PhD program, if you don't have enough research example, then you could do something like a pre-doctorate or going for a master's. And I think for going to master's, I think it matters less, as Vikram also mentioned, that you're not from that same department. For like, especially for like CS masters, I see regularly people from like physics department, mechanical engineering, very different fields who are like coming to CS, because I feel like if you've done some STEM undergrad, they still consider like, okay, you can still do the CS masters. Maybe from psychology it will be very different to get a CS masters, but being from mechanical engineering, it's not as hard because you still have some relevant background. You still know the math that goes into CS. Not all of it maybe, but like you still have the, you can say the rigorous like engineering background, you can say, that is required for computer science, right? So I don't think I think if you're doing any major in IIT Kanpur, I think you are definitely more than capable of like pursuing a master's at least in computer science. So that is something you could explore if that is something you really want to do. But I would say start by taking classes in Kanpur itself. Yeah. I mean, Pramod can add more if he has some other thought.
Yeah, so I definitely know a lot of people who have been in completely different fields, and then they have switched to a PhD in machine learning or PhD in a problem that applies machine learning. But I think my answer would still be the same, that don't really I think it's very important to not obsess about machine learning. It's good. It's a very interesting field. It's is the right now it's the most it's growing rapidly. All of that is true, but it's not the case that everything else is dying. It's not like machine learning is taking over the world. Machine learning is also slowing down in some ways. Like it is stagnation in terms of applications, and now at this point, I think only the very hard problems in machine learning are the most interesting ones, like what Bhuvesh is doing, I would say, or even interpretability or like fairness, like he was talking about. So these are actually niche problems in machine learning, and not ones you would study the moment you start in the first course that you go into. So instead of thinking about PhD in ML, I would say, like, at least the people that I know, so they took a problem, they were interested in it, they maybe joined in the say robotics program at Georgia Tech, and then they found a professor in machine learning who was interesting. They worked with them closely for a semester and applied machine learning in their project, and they did a good job. Only then I think they were confident enough, or they were in a position where they could switch. So that's also a very, very good option. That's a very even safer option, I would say, because you are actually doing something that you like. You start off with doing something that you already are familiar with, are comfortable with. You're already you start your work in that, and then you might explore. Like even in the beginning of your PhD, you explore a lot. Like I said, I had nothing to do with machine learning when I started off my PhD. So I was in computer architecture, and that did not even include machine learning. But then I explored a bit, and I did one course in undergrad, which was not even, I guess, very important in my professor's decision to hire me, because at that point, it's basically like how sincere you are and how much you work, and that's all it has to do. So just try to be like sincere in your efforts, and like if you get an admission and then you explore a bit, eventually if your problem or if your mindset is suitable for that, you will end up in some machine learning related role. But even if you do not, it's not the case that you're doing bad at all, to be very honest. Like privacy,
Yeah.
for example, is another topic which is, I think, going to be probably bigger than machine learning in some years, but no one really talks about it right now. So that's because it's still in a very, very nascent stage. The fact that we're talking so much about machine learning right now also means that everyone knows about it. It's not like you're finding something very fundamental and you will become like a multimillionaire doing something
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. And the reason like people are talking more about privacy, more about research, like machine learning, and less about privacy is because machine learning helps companies make money, and privacy does the opposite of it, right? So a lot of this research is driven by like what the eventual goals of people are. And like right now, ML is helping people make a lot of money as well, right? Like this ad systems, like Google, Facebook, they are basically ad companies, and their whole they depend on machine learning to make money. So that's why they're investing a lot of money into this machine learning, because their existence depends on it. So that's why this field has blown up a lot as well, because it's helping people make money, and those things are usually correlated. So that is one of the reasons. And one thing I also want to add is that, like, if you want to explore ML, like, I agree that like you can take classes in CS and stuff in Kanpur, but that's not necessarily that you need to be from a CS background to do a machine learning PhD. This is what Pramod and like uh, they're saying as well. And especially like now you look at universities, they are also starting these programs which are also like interdepartmental. So like, for example, Georgia Tech has a ML PhD program which accepts students from 7 different departments. Like, so it's made up of mechanical engineering, aerospace engineering, electrical engineering, and some CS schools, and 3 of them are CS and HCI and stuff. So basically, a mechanical engineering department is making decisions about hiring students in their department for a degree, but they will get a ML PhD. Like the degree will say ML PhD, but you're going to a mechanical engineering department, or you're going to an aerospace engineering department. So it's not necessary that you need to be in CS to do ML. So that is like, that is not the perspective anymore. And since like different departments are also using ML or doing research in ML, I feel like right now it's not like, even if you want to do ML, I'm not as Pramod said, that shouldn't be the case that that's what you want to do because it's hot. But I'm just saying, even if you want to do ML, that's not the case that you have to be in CS, because even other departments, everyone's realizing that like anyone can do ML. So like the new ML PhD programs that a lot of universities are starting have like these interdepartmental accepts. Similarly, there's like OR PhD programs which do ML kind of stuff, but they hire people from industrial engineering. So similarly, we have like ACO program at Georgia Tech, for example, which is algorithm combinatorics and optimization, which a lot of people end up doing ML in that, but people in that come from like math department or like industrial engineering or the stat departments. So people are coming in different departments and into different programs, and universities are also like understanding that like not everyone has the CS background, but still like there are avenues where you can apply ML in different areas. So they are hiring people to do ML in different departments as well, if doing ML is your goal.
Thank you, Bhuvesh. Okay, so going on to our last question for the session. So that came from a student. So in brief, do you have any particular advice on what on how one can make the most out of their graduate program, and what one can like how one can decide what they will do after the grad program?
Okay. I mean, maybe I can start with this. So I think, yeah, you definitely need to have some idea about before joining the graduate program as well, like why you want to do this why you want to do a PhD, for example, right? Like you need to have some idea at least before you take this big step of like putting, I don't know, it takes, even if it might not take like 2-3 years of your life, you might quit after 2-3 years. The Promos Light, you can still do that, and it gives you experience and it helps you in your career. But it also it also has like negative consequences in the sense that there is a lot of mental stress, there's anxiety, there is earning less compared to your peers. Like, okay, you still earn enough, but like if I compare myself to my peers who are, let's say, graduated from CSE IIT Kanpur and are like in San Francisco making tons of money, I am making way less compared to them. So you are sort of making sacrifices. So you have to have some idea what you want to do before. But I think in the PhD program, like then your goal should be like to explore the potential directions that you had thought of and like see like what all experience you can get in that. And other than that, like what I would recommend is like, yeah, interacting with your fellow peers, trying to see what other labs are working on or what other students are working on. And then in general, like being more, I don't know, open to expanding and not being very limited to what you had initially thought. Like if you come with the idea, okay, I'm going to work in control theory, and you don't even try anything else, that might, I don't think that's a good way to like look at grad school, because that is some period before your job. And especially if you're in PhD, you have 5 years. And the motive is for having that much period is that it's not just that all the 5 years are spent in solving the problem that you thought of in your first year. I feel like most majority of this is spent in like trying to find what you actually want to work on, because you find some problems, you like this, and you start doing more in that research, and then suddenly you explore something else. And from my experience, what the thesis title would be for a lot of people, it's decided at the end of their fourth year. And even like, yeah, it's decided very late. It depends on countries, like some and institutes somewhere and departments, like cultures are different. But I feel like you go with an open-ended idea. Okay, I want to do this, relate this broad area, and then you explore, and then that's the way I think to go about a PhD. And I think thinking about future plans, like what you want to do, like for me, like I always thought that okay, I want to do a PhD, but I never really wasn't that excited about the idea of being like a professor, like because it does come with extra challenges. You have to worry about tenure, it's still stressful, it doesn't pay as much as industry. But like I didn't really know what it entails, right? Like, or what the industry even entails, because I didn't really work. So how I went about is that like I did a software engineering internship, I did a research internship, And I collaborated with folks outside my university as well. Like I've collaborated with University of Washington, University of Boston. I collaborated with some universities in Germany to basically get an idea of like what academia in other universities look like, because the culture from university to university also varies a lot, because like how grad students work in Georgia Tech, or like how the whole PhD program, or like how what the you can say the ecosystem is between grad students and at Georgia Tech might be very different from what the ecosystem is at University of Washington. So like just based on your university, if you make decisions about your career that okay, like okay, for example, you might have a very good experience and you're like, okay, I really want to be a professor. And the next university you go to, like you see that the culture is very different and you don't really enjoy that. So in that sense, I feel like it's very important in your grad student to like have multiple collaborations, or if not collaborations, at least interactions with people who are not limited to your lab or your university, and just explore possibilities of what all you could do. And yeah, and that way I think you can get more out of your graduate program. And I think being open to like research directions, and being open to not yeah being open to things in general, I would say, is good. Like because 5 years you can't do just research, right? Like you have to think of your overall development as an individual over these 5 years as well. Like you can't really just say that okay, I'm just going to focus on research. You have to think about like building friendships, trying to get experiences, traveling, learning new hobbies, having friends, and like dating. Like you have to do everything. You can't really just say that okay, I'm going to focus on research and everything is secondary, because because in undergrad you can still do that, because like you're preparing for a career later. But when you are in PhD, you have to look at PhD as a job. Like you are an adult in the society living right now. You can't really live on that student. You are basically a student, but you can't really live on that student mindset that like you will think of things after you'll think of other things after PhD. Like right now, just focus on PhD. It's like yeah, it's 5 years of your life. So like people, I've seen people get married in the middle of their PhD program. So like, how do you manage that? Like managing it, like getting married in the middle of PhD, or like starting a completely new life in the middle of PhD. So I feel it is, and I feel that is the way to go about it. Like not think of this PhD as like something you will do and then you'll start your career. It's like it's a part of your career, it's part of your life. You have to do the rest of the things as well. I think that's the way to make the most of your grad school, and not like you're making it a very restrictive, just an educational experience. It has to be like you have to grow as an individual, I would say. So I think that's how I would say would be the best way to make of your grad school.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Bhuvesh said. Like there are so many things to do during like being a grad student as compared to being an undergrad. I think when we were undergrads, like the set goal, there was very limited time. You take so many courses, and that's it. Like kind of you have a set trajectory. That first year you do S&T projects, second year you try to work with professor, third year internship, and then job or like grad school. But here there is so much like freedom. Like you need to develop as a human being in these 5 years. Like that's like one of the most important things that I felt like. And I think it changed like over the time. Like when I came here, I think I have improved a lot like over the past like 3-4 years. Like a few things just to like reinforce Bhuvesh's point is like definitely collaboration is one of the most important things in from a research perspective. Like you learn a lot from your collaborators, like what are like different ways to think about a problem. Like sometimes very narrow vision, and then when you see someone else's perspective about the same problem, then that could be really insightful. And a lot of research areas develop out of these collaborations. Like for example, in robotics, this area of soft robotics came out of collaboration between roboticists from mechanical engineer and the material scientists. So now this is a huge field in itself, soft robotics. So definitely collaboration is very important. The other thing is have a balanced lifestyle, like do work in the time when you have to work, but also have a life, like have hobbies to pursue. It's really important that you refresh your mind. That's how you get new ideas flowing in your brain, like have a healthy lifestyle. You can't just think of it as a race. It is really a marathon type thing. Like you have to think of a long term rather than a short term goal basis. And find definitely a good friend circle. Like this is one of the things which is underrated, I think, but very important. Like I know people like who felt really depressed just because they were like lonely, especially during the COVID time, because they were not meeting a lot of people and all. Fortunately, I had my friends and like we used to meet very often, like for all those type of things. And it really helps, like sharing things and talking about like how their life is going. They face the same things, like they're also grad students. Sometimes you just keep blabbering about your advisor that okay, they are making you work sometimes too much, or like TA stuff, but that definitely helps. And at the end I feel like you also like, as a PhD student, you also become an advisor in some sense. Like you try to manage these projects. There are undergrads or like master students working under you. So as Pramod said, you take ownership of a project and like you guide them through the same process as your advisor guides you. So I think that is a very crucial thing, like that you get out of a PhD. And yeah, an important lesson to learn in these 5 years. So yeah, in general, I feel like these 5 years could be very valuable and just have a lot of fun. Like enjoy what you are doing. If you are not enjoying what you are doing, then probably it's not for you. You should get out.
Yeah, one thing I've also learned is like looking at my friends is like in grad school, it's also fine to quit. Like I feel, okay, I mean, I haven't, I mean, but like I feel like it's not meant for everyone. And like so in my PhD cohort, like very honestly, like in CS theory, how many 5 people started with me, 6 people started with in we 6 of us started together, and 3 people have quit their PhD programs in the middle with the masters, and they're doing pretty well. Like they're working, like one of them is in Apple, one is at Google, and one is at some other tech firm, and they're making loads of money. And I feel like some people do get into this question of like putting too much pressure on themselves that they are in this program, that they need to graduate and they need to get this degree and they need to, I don't know, it becomes like an honor thing, or like, which is fine if it challenges you. But I feel like it's also fine to realize that like getting this degree is not the end of everything. Like you have a life ahead of you, and like if this degree, if like being in this program is making you miserable, then sometimes you have to make hard decisions that like, yeah, maybe you should quit, or maybe you should master out, or maybe you should change directions. And like taking bold decisions like like that can be very difficult. But I feel like it is sometimes important to take such decisions as well. So that is something to keep in mind. Like I think I mean, don't think keep in mind that you have to quit for something, but don't keep in mind, you have to keep in mind that this is not the end of the world. Like it's not like you have to get a PhD or if you leave. Because I feel like at IIT Kanpur, like the ball game is different. Like I see that it's very like sad that people get terminated and people like get on academic probations and like they end up leaving without, and that affects like the future career options that they have. But when you're at a PhD, like even if you leave in the middle, you're still getting a master's. So you have to start looking things at differently, and you have to basically be less hard on yourself, I feel. Because I feel like I have been very hard on myself personally, and I've seen that has been the case with some of my peers as well. And like coming to the terms that okay, like just quitting and like going to industry is not that bad of a choice if that's the right decision for them. And I think that's like a very right move on some people's part. So I think that coming to terms with that is also important. Yeah.
I think like what Bhuvesh said, to summarize, like to put it in other words, I think it's like you're not at that point, if you're not happy with what you're doing, so at the end of the day, all of us are taking some decisions because we think that's the best decision for us and we think that we'll enjoy it. So that's very, very, very important that you feel passionate about something. You feel that you like something enough that you'll spend 5 years with it. And that's the only reason why you're going for a PhD, not because someone else is going for a PhD, not because your advisor asked you to go for a PhD, not because you think PhD will give you the maximum money or like maximum respect. None of all of that is, in my opinion, like with all due respect, bullshit. So at the end of the day, you should really, really feel passionate about what you're starting off with, or like you should feel passionate about a problem, and that is the only thing that can keep you going for that amount of time. And what all like the suggestions that Vikram and Bhuvesh were saying, like putting your mental health in the forefront, working out, like maintaining your work and life balance, all of that, all of those are important for that passion to remain like succinct in all those years. Like it's very easy for you to lose track, lose interest, lose motivation, and it becomes difficult to realize whether it's because you stop liking it or whether it's because you're not living a balanced lifestyle. So you have to keep all the other parameters constant, like work life balance, your mental health, physical health. And then if you see that your passion is no longer, like you no longer feel as much about that problem, it's at that point it's probably better to leave that problem and do something else that you like than to go ahead with it and at the end of 5 years just feel like, okay, yeah, I got this degree, but now what? So it's like that degree doesn't mean anything if you're not enjoying what you're doing. Like it literally does not mean anything at all. Like no one will look at your PhD and give you a job for sure. I think it's still true for IIT Kanpur degree, but not at all for your PhD. So
Yes.
yeah, so just make sure. So that's again another reason I also say, like, take it easy, explore a bit before you start off, or like in general, take it easy. Don't really, like, like it's not a rat race. PhD is a very, very specialized journey. Like everyone's story is different, everyone's journey is different. And I know people who have finished it in 3 years or 4 years. I know people who have done it in 7 years. I know people who have done it for 3 years, left it, did a startup for 4 years, and then finished it 2 years later. So it's not like IIT Kanpur where everyone is done in 4 years, and if you're a stud if you do it in 3.5 years, or like you're a stud if you got an internship in your third year. Like it's not like that. It's a very personalized journey, and that is why it's very, very important for you to always be passionate, always be in your best fresh mind, because all the decisions, whether to continue, whether to stop, whether to go for a master's, like all of these you are taking. None of it, anyone cannot really help you as much as you can. So yeah, in general, take it easy, and I would say, yeah, try to maintain that passion. And like if you don't feel passionately about something, maybe you should take some time to explore why before jumping on.
Yeah.
So,
Adding to your Pramod's point about money quickly, like especially, okay, I mean, thinking that like PhD will help you make more money, like sometimes it helps, but like purely speaking from a computer science undergraduate from an IIT Kanpur perspective, if money is your end goal, PhD is definitely a bad financial decision, because for 5 years you're not earning as much, and after 5 years, let's say you go to the industry, you'll get a high paying job, but your friends with 5 years of experience in the industry will be making more than when you join. So if you take the integral over your lifetime, like a PhD could be like $1 million, even more decision, especially if you like a computer science engineer who is like planning to move to the Bay Area, and like tech salaries, based on tech salaries there. So it could be worth $1 million of your lifetime deciding to do a PhD. So yes, if money is your end goal, I don't think PhD is definitely the right numbers, right goal, right idea, especially if you do the numbers for what all other possibilities you have. Yeah, if you crunch the numbers. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for interrupting.
no, not at all, of course. I think that this is a good place to end the session here. So I would really like to thank our panelists, Bhuvesh, Vikram, and Pramod for taking out times from their schedules and agreeing to impart so much of their experience and so much of your insights and so much of your advice to all of us who are even thinking about exploring research as a career later. So the recording of the session will be made available to everyone. Final gratitude to all our panelists again. Thank you so much for joining in and stay safe.
Thank you.
And thank you for having us. And I see that some people have questions. So I guess like when you send out these videos or something, send out my email. I'm assuming Pramod and Vikram are also fine with sharing their emails. And yeah, people can reach out to us if they have any questions.
Yeah. No.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for hosting this event, Shaksham and Debatit. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
You guys are doing good work. Yeah. We didn't have any such session when we were there.
Yeah. Good job, guys.
Thank you for being a part.
Yeah, thanks for having us. And thanks everyone for attending.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.